Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Culture Report. I'm Jamal Simon.
I'm DeMarco Randall.
And I'm Antonia Velez, and we have a packed show for you all today.
Jam-packed, baby.
Jam-packed. But let's just start with the biggest news of this week. Now, Election Day is just under 11 weeks away, when voters will decide whether Vice President Kamala Harris or former President Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States. The Democratic National Convention started in Chicago this week, and despite the fact that this event happens every 4 years since the 19th century, this year's convention is like no other. For the first time in U.S. history, a sitting president handed over the authority of his party to his vice president after being pushed to drop his bid for re-election. Current President Joe Biden wrapped up the first night of the DNC with an emotional start to his presidential exit as he passed the torch to Vice President Kamala Harris.
Selecting Kamala was the very first decision I made when I became our nominee. And it was the best decision I made my whole career.
And as candidates continue campaigning through rallies across the country, the latest national polls show Harris has a slight advantage over Trump. Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance spoke at a rally in Philadelphia, criticizing Vice President Harris for continuing to refuse interviews with the press weeks into her candidacy. Meanwhile, Trump participated in a roundtable discussion at a factory in York, Pennsylvania, to talk about the economy, where he took aim at Harris's plan.
If Kamala gets in, the United States will rapidly become a deindustrialized third world nation, like so many others have become. She's running on socialist price controls, banning gas-powered cars and trucks, and private health insurance policies are gone.
Former President Trump is also sharing who he'd consider bringing onto his team if elected. He said he'd be open to independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. playing a role in his administration.
And authorities in Paris have launched an investigation after Algerian Olympic boxer Imane Khelif filed a criminal complaint alleging acts of aggravated cyber harassment. Now, the 25-year-old gold medalist was attacked on social media after Italian boxer Angela Carini abandoned a match against her less than a minute after it started. Khelif, who was assigned female at birth and does not identify as transgender or intersex, became the center of criticism, misinformation, and online debates about whether she should be competing in women's sports. Among those who participated in these debates were author J.K. Rowling and Elon Musk, who are both named in the lawsuit, as Khelif's lawyer told Variety magazine. Khelif's lawyer also said that everyone who said hateful things will be looked into, and added that former President Donald Trump is part of the investigation as well.
The 2009 movie The Blind Side is back in the headlines, but not for Sandra Bullock's portrayal of Leanne or for the box office success, but because Michael Orr, who the film and the book is about, spoke out for the first time since filing a lawsuit. Orr alleges that Sean and Leanne Tooley lied about having adopted him and placed him into a conservatorship that gave them control over his finances and major life decisions. He also accused them of excluding him from the money they made from The Blind Side. The Tooleys denied Orr's accusations and alleged that he received more than $100,000 in proceeds from the book and the movie.
This season of The Bachelorette is about more than just chemistry. The lead, Jen Tran, is emphasizing religious compatibility as well. There's been a lot done over the past few years to improve racial diversity in the Bachelor franchise, but fans told NBC News that they're also excited to finally see religious diversity. In a recent episode, Tran told one of the contestants how she'd like to eventually instill Buddhist beliefs in her kids, the religion she was raised in. This season is giving what some say is a refreshingly surprising amount of airtime to trans Buddhist beliefs, as well as some of the Jewish contestants' religious upbringings, which is something NBC says many critics believe have been avoided in the past, given the show's mostly white Christian fan base.
And the U.S. Secretary of State said Monday that Israel's prime minister has agreed to move forward with a ceasefire and hostage release proposal that has been months in the making. Antony Blinken says the next step is for Hamas to agree to this plan, but he did not describe the proposal or say whether concerns with past iterations had been addressed. The urgency for a ceasefire soared in recent weeks because, in addition to a worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza, the threat of an even more devastating regional war has been looming after Israel was blamed for the killings of the former leader of Hamas and a top Hezbollah commander. Hezbollah and Iran, who backs both militant groups, promised to retaliate. Since the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th, in which 1,200 people were killed and 250 were abducted, Israel's offensive on Gaza has killed more than 40,000 Palestinians and displaced nearly 2 million others. And last weekend, people all over the world, from Tokyo to Mexico City, held demonstrations to protest Venezuela's contested presidential election results. Supporters of the opposition candidate, Edmundo González, are continuing to urge international governments to stand behind González as the winner of the election. Protests in Venezuela since the elections have led to thousands of arrests. Despite mounting pressures, Venezuela's electoral body has still not released voting tallies to back their disputed claim that current President Nicolás Maduro won for a third time.
So it looks like Elmo's still looking out for us even in adulthood. His wellness check post on X earlier this year has inspired a project for good. So the nonprofit behind Sesame Street started a survey with the Harris Poll called the State of Well-Being Report. They interviewed a little over 2,000 people in the U.S. over 16 years old to find out what they prioritize when it comes to the future of well-being. Most of the participants found mental health nearly as important as a stable economy.
And speaking of mental health, August is National Wellness Month, the perfect time to make self-care a priority. Of course, not all communities have the same access to education about how to take care of themselves or to services that help facilitate that, which is why today we're joined by Rebecca Gibbs-Thompson and Sharon Thompson, COO and CEO of Healthy Denver, to tell us a little bit about what wellness looks like across communities. Thank you so much for joining us today. Would you tell us a little bit about your organization and what you all kind of define as wellness?
Healthy Denver Inc., we promote health equality in the community for all. We have 5 pillars that we do that with, which is food and nutrition, health and wellness, music and arts, sports and rec, and the kids corner. So we go in the community and do classes, workshops. Sharon herself does art. Sharon's the CEO, and Sharon's the one who started the organization. So you can maybe tell me a little bit more, Sharon?
Yes, through activism, collaboration, classes, that's where we step in and provide access to communities that don't have access to resources for health and wellness. Rebecca does financial wellness classes. That's very important for balance.
Right. Yeah. What would y'all say that the access in Colorado, what does that sort of look like? And what are some of the discrepancies that some of these groups may face when searching for healthcare or even looking for, places to go and talk about those financial well-being stuff as well?
A lot of nothing, because if you don't know where to look, you don't know what to find. We become like a resource for folks.
Yeah.
Because you could go ask the wrong person the right question, but they give you the wrong answer, and now you're stuck in a rock and a hard place. So we kind of come into play to help just the community in a whole, the underserved and under-resourced community, especially the BIPOC and LGBTQ community.
How do y'all kind of get your message out there to connect to these people? And like you said, a lot of the times there's not those places and there's not the correct information out there. So is it them coming to you guys, or are you guys doing a lot of outreach?
We do a lot of grassroots outreach and networking. We have a lot of partners like RTD,
Yeah.
Sand Creek Trail, Calc, Denver, transportation, feminine products, clothing, Coalition for the Homeless. So we're out there in the neighborhoods, in the schools, the churches, the clubs. And people find us now that a lot of people know that we're out there and that we're here to help. A lot of people are starting to find us now.
That's awesome.
That's part of what I was curious about, kind of like the why behind the discrepancies, why you don't see as many, especially BIPOC or queer people, maybe going out and looking for wellness. Do you think it's like the providers that are lacking, and if there are some holes there? Do you think that as a community as a whole, we are just like either conditioned to or just have learned not to ask for help, or don't even know that we need the problem?
All of the above.
All of the above.
too much pride sometimes to ask for help, not having the resources or the health insurance, as you said. Like, you know, you can get Medicaid sometimes because you have to be within a certain bracket. Your job may not give you health insurance or medical insurance. We provide holistic type resources and partners that we refer to our constituents to when they come ask for resources. We're like, hey, what are you looking for? Do you need a nutritionist? Do you need art? Do you need a workout person, a partner, or a group to be a part of? Or like yoga classes, like we had our festival, Healthy Denver Festival on Sunday. It was our 8th annual festival, and it's just vendors in the communities coming together to build culture and community together.
That's awesome. Well, for anyone who's watching right now, if you had one piece of advice, what would it be in terms of wellness?
Get connected. Get connected with somebody that's doing things that you need, and that, you know, will be willing to help you. I mean, that's the first thing is figuring out what you need and then finding that resource and then tapping into that.
Not being too afraid or, afraid to ask because what someone else will think. At the end of the day, your health, your wealth, yourself is more important than anything else. So,
absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that your organization is planning? Anything exciting that you want to share?
Yes, always. As I mentioned, on Sunday we had our 8th annual Healthy Denver Festival at Sculpture Park, the Performing Arts Complex.
We have an art show as well at Rising Gallery on Saturday.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again so much for joining us today. And everyone, go check out their website.
Yes, please.
And Denver's first bilingual newspaper is celebrating 50 years of coverage. Lavos Colorado started as a bi-weekly paper in 1974, focusing on stories and issues within the Latino and Hispanic communities in Colorado. At that time, much of what they covered, would have not been featured in the mainstream media.
Well, I think the bilingual publications they fit a need in the community. You know, for example, in the Chicano community, it helps bring people together and create some cohesion in the community.
50 years later, the news outlet continues to be a voice for the Hispanic community. In Colorado, each edition of the paper will be archived with the Colorado Historic Newspaper site, an effort to make all the work they have done accessible to the public.
That is so awesome.
I know, especially for the 70s. I feel like it's so important, especially in communities where you are the minority, to make sure that you create certain spaces or outlets for people like you so they can be plugged in too, especially because I feel like, especially with the language barrier, I feel like news, like what's going on, interprets how you vote and interprets how you live your life and interprets how what like opportunities you know that you have access to. So
it's literally everything. And I love that they also talked about how, in addition to news, they featured stories from these communities. And that's
huge. Also
important, right? Like shedding a light and putting these people like in a spotlight, just as we would anyone else, is like super, super important. So
I was wondering, Antonio, because I know you do work like with a lot of like Spanish content, especially here at 9 News. Can you kind of talk about like your perspective in like today's age? Like, what is it like making Spanish content and, you know, getting that information out to those communities?
Totally. I think it's the same. We have to give it the same importance as we would every day at 9 News and other newsrooms. That we make sure that people get the information they need to, you know, stay informed, be safe, you know what resources are out there. And in that same regard, these communities who are here, a lot of them, yes, they do speak English. A lot of them have been here for years and years, but others are new, but they're still part of the community. So it's important that we also keep them informed. And give them the information that they need in their language, as well as tell stories that are about them, because they are embedded in day-to-day activities and, you know, the community as a whole. So it's important that when we do tell their stories, we let them do that in their own language. I think that honors their dignity, that honors their story, and I think that 9 News is doing a good job. Well, I'm trying to do a good job of that.
She's doing a great job at that.
In addition to that, though, this story, which about Lavos Colorado, the newspaper, Angeline McCall has the full story on 9news.com, and I actually translated that as well, so y'all can go look at that in full on our website, which just kind of adds to the whole, we've come full circle. We have that story in English and in Spanish.
Good things are happening in Colorado.
Yeah. Good things are happening in Colorado and elsewhere. Let's hop into this week's good news.
very demure, very mindful.
Now, you've probably seen this demure trend everywhere, even on the White House Instagram page. What you may not know is that the creator behind the trend is now able to access gender-affirming care because of it. Jules LeBron, who now has nearly 2 million followers on TikTok, posted a video last week saying that she will now be able to finance the rest of her transition after the videos she made on her breaks at work went viral.
And President Joe Biden signed a proclamation designating the site of the 1908 Springfield, Illinois race riot a national monument. Fallout from the riot, which was started by white lynch mobs, led to the creation of the NAACP. Biden was joined by civil rights leaders and community leaders from Springfield. The president said those events in 1908 are a reminder to reject hate.
An Italian athlete is set to become the first openly transgender athlete to participate in the Paralympic Games. Valentina Petrillo is a visually impaired sprinter who qualified to represent Italy in the women's 200 and 400 meter races in Paris. The International Paralympic Committee president told BBC Sport that while Petrillo is welcome in Paris under World Para-Athletes policies, he hopes to see the entire sporting world unite on its transgender policies.
We love to see it.
That is lovely, so progressive, so accepting. Oh, some other good news. We have this very large baby-sized zucchini. I love to see that people are growing their own produce. It's really important for people to grow your own food, very healthy. Our EP Amanda grew this. It's lovely. It's not mine. It's actually for a coworker. But we love growing produce.
We love growing produce, and this is like really impressive.
It's
good news for Amanda.
That's good news for Amanda. Amanda, I'm glad you're eating good at home.
And Amanda ate. And she's gonna eat good.
Amanda ate, and
she ate and is gonna eat good.
So, shout out to you. Grow your own food. That's all. That's all we have to say. Anyways, thank you guys so much for joining this week's Culture Report. We'll be back to continue the conversation right here on 9 News Plus and 9news.com.